Determine if the property known as the transfer station should be disposed of by the county. Tonight, several members of the county staff are in attendance, as well as Deputy Director Jeff Cool. This hearing is being taped so that members of the board who are not in attendance can listen to the comments made before making any decisions. This is a public hearing in which members of the public can take comments. This time is not intended to be a question and answer
My
session.
name is Curtis Leeds, longtime Hunterdon resident. I've reviewed the limited amount of materials I was able to find regarding your proposal or consideration of this proposal. I'm grateful for this additional information you've provided tonight. Obviously, I haven't had a chance to review it. But I do see what appears to be some defects in the process to date. For example, I presume you've all seen this, of which I just have a few pages. Incidentally, do you know who authored this? So knowing who it would come from would help in evaluating the comments that are made. Does anyone know?
We'll give you information on that, Mr. Leeds, in terms of those that were involved in the composition of that report.
So you can't answer in the public hearing who was the person maybe in charge of the report, or just general information?
This is just a public hearing, comments only, so we're not gonna answer questions back and forth. If you have
If
questions.
you propose them, I'll just give you my comments instead, referring to your documents. Looking at page 2 of this report, titled on the front, Hunterdon County Transfer Station Materials Recovering Facility, Petticoat Lane, Clinton Township, Lot 46, Lot 32. This is the report I just referenced. It doesn't indicate who wrote it. It says, this is right at the top of the first graph on page 2, that part of the process should be, I'm quoting, assessing the environmental and recreational impact of the property, assessing the environmental and economic value of the real property, or capital improvement proposed to be sold, leased, so on. On the last page of the report, under report limitations, it says, no environmental sampling or testing of air, water, or soil was performed for this report. So there's an inconsistency, I would suggest at the very least, between the assertion made about the requirements for this study and the work that was actually done. Primary justification for considering the sale is economic, and the county's concern with respect to local property taxpayers' funds. Okay. On the Sterner Consulting report, it states that we have had access to county records, volumes, substantial anecdotal information regarding the general activities of the site and its current operator. But they also state, and I think this is interesting because they put it in boldface, suggesting this is a particularly important point that they're making. Quote, it is important to note that we have not received any financial or operating information or expense data from the current contract operators of the site. And yet, that data, or at least some of that data, according to the lease you have with the operator, should be quarterly submissions that the county is receiving from the operator of the site. He also says, our opinion, this is on page 16, again, the Sterner Consulting report, our opinion presumes that the property is free of environmental contamination. Recommendations that Sterner made. It's stated on page 14 regarding staffing, equipment, volume, and pricing was based on a model they developed based on their understanding of the marketplace. But their understanding of the marketplace did not include reviewing the records which you being the freeholders, have required from the operator contractually. So there's a huge disconnect here. And I'd suggest that no sale can go forward until, at the very least, the environmental assessment's done. And in terms
Residents, the county does not, I quote, the county does not anticipate any immediate change in services provided to county residents by the TSMRF. I find that hard to believe, because if you can sell it, whoever buys it has the right to do what they want to do with it under state law. The only speaker during the first public hearing said that, quote, not all county residents see the benefits of the dump, end quote. I think you have an obligation to assess and report to us how many residents do see the benefits of the dump. All I heard were one man's opinions. I've heard nothing else from the county on this. I've heard no fact-based explanation. I've not seen or heard any kind of data relating to the usage of the transfer station. For data, I would suggest that you park in the long line on Petticoat Lane any Saturday morning, an hour before the dump opens, to see how many people actually use the facility. For data, count the users. For data, why don't you do a referendum or a survey? Who wants the dump to be sold? Who wants the county to keep the dump, and why? What is the likelihood that a sale would result in the dump being closed entirely? There are several sections of these documents that strongly hint that the dump could be acquired by a buyer and use it as something other than a dump. The state of New Jersey may not want that. They may not be willing to sign a lease, but that's really immaterial. Transfer station. So where and how far away is the nearest service to replace it, and how much would the cost be compared to what we're getting now? I use the dump for rubbish and for recycling. I'm dismayed the commissioners have not provided any defensible reasons for moving ahead with the sale without assessing how the public actually uses this $5 million public asset. I had to submit 7 open requests to get the information about this proposal, some as long ago as June 16th, and I still don't have all the information. I think you're putting the cart before the horse. Certainly, freeholder's job is to save money. I have to say, as an elected public official myself, where I've held many public hearings, I'm frankly shocked and dismayed that all the freeholders are not here. The idea that we show up, the public shows up, we take time out of our busy day, and they can't come to hear us, they can listen on a recording, I find that atrocious. Freeholder's job is to save taxpayers money. By selling the dump, they may save us a few dollars, but we trust our elected officials to use the tens of millions of dollars that we give you to deliver the services that we need. What you save pales next to that obligation. What the freeholders are doing here, freeholders, commissioners, pardon me, you're eliminating an important public asset and service without assessing the toll this would take on taxpayers and on users of the facility. Anyone that hires a contractor who must dispose of construction debris will pay more for that contractor to haul the debris further, or pay more whether you make improvements or if a buyer does. I don't understand the rationale that's been offered. So the rationale that's been offered is the county is going to spend it for our benefit. What's most important here is the service levels to the residents and the taxpayers, not whether the commissioners think they can afford it. The commissioner's job is to figure out how to pay for it. The job is not to speculate, it's to deliver. So I'm asking the commissioners to please do your jobs. Justify any decision you make with facts and data about what your constituents need, not how you're going to save money.
Teacher, I'm a local resident, lived in Hunterdon County my whole life. I just wanted to share that the transfer station is a benefit to community. I personally use it as a recycling center as well as a place to take bulky waste. And the other benefit that it has is it's unique. I don't think any other county, like Warren County might have a transfer station like ours, but not all the counties do. They'll use private companies instead. When you take away a space, and as someone mentioned, like you see people, they'll line up early in the morning, they're willing to sit there to get rid of their stuff. When you take that away, you're just going to increase dumping in local spaces, alongside roads or in our public green spaces. So that's not something I want to see happen to our community either. What's great great about the transfer station is it's very easy to use. You don't have to know a lot. You can just go to the county and pick up your dump card, and you can get like one free dump. Otherwise, you just pay the tipping fee. So I just found it a very user-friendly service, and I was glad to use it my whole life. I miss when it was recycling separated by like glass, plastic, paper, because I felt that people did a better job of recycling when you had to sort it. But I just don't want to see a loss of a resource that will just increase dumping in the community, because we don't want to look like our county's further east. That's all.
My name is Dan Connor. The young woman mentioned a great intangible. We see enough dumping along the sides of the road. Make it inconvenient for the people, and they will find additional areas to dump. We can't make it too easy for people to dispose of waste. As far as saving the county money, what you save in taxes will be passed off as fees to my wife and myself. We live, our children have outgrown, they've left the home. We have perhaps one plastic bag of trash we put out to the road. Yet we spend close to $500 a year to have trash from an entity with no control from any overlooking government entity, and I don't know where those fees are going to be. Somewhere those fees are going to be passed on. So whether we find that we're spending much more or less, there's just no way of knowing. Also, lose control, and once again, we don't know the direction this will go. They're driven with, a profit-making concern takes this over. They're going to be driven by profit. We could see more volume, more trash, more trucks move to that location. We could see it reduced. So I think you've got a lot of tangible and intangible issues here that need to be addressed. And I haven't heard anything that really supports your position in all this. Then once again, I'm not sure who I'm addressing, other than what freeholder here. But I just hope the balance of the freeholders or the commissioners take their time to listen through these tapes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike Malay, Mayor of Clinton Township. I just want to reiterate a comment that I've heard from a number of residents, and which I had anticipated somewhat, which is that regardless of the decision that the commissioners make, I think it's incredibly important that some provision be made to ensure the continued access for residents, both in the Clinton Township, because we do provide cards for each resident to be able to have one free trip with the dump, but also for the surrounding communities who do use that, not only for bulky waste, but also for recyclables. So I look forward to
Seeking bids?
Correct.
They can't decide not to pursue this?
They must seek bids?
Of course, I meant if they were going to proceed to do it, but that doesn't mean they're absolutely going to go forward. They have to take in all the information. So what I was saying is if you see a bid being advertised, that does not mean that's the end all be all, that's the final decision. It's merely another piece of information to be taken in.
When you submit questions after this meeting, we can do that.
Yes.
You can explain they wouldn't be answered in this meeting, but will the questions that are submitted get answered if we submit them? And how and where?
More information will be provided, so if you submit questions, we'll, if it's something that we think everyone will want, we'll put it together. If it's something that's an individual, you want a copy of something, you send us a request, we'll send it, so, it's part of the process.
They can also attend any of the county commissioner meetings where they can ask questions as well.
Commissioner meeting, but not in this forum?
No, not necessarily.
Not
Not
necessarily.
necessarily. So I think what Mr. Corcadillos is seeking is a clarification on, you're not answering questions here, which I understand, you're inviting us to submit questions. It's not clear to me to whom we submit them, because I'm not clear on what this entity is that's holding this meeting tonight. And it also isn't clear how we would then get the answers to those questions.
So I would submit them in an email, you could send them to the clerk of the board, Andrew Rosano, you could send them to myself, I'm county counsel, Brett Myers, the administrator. if you send them to any of these people, we will make sure that we've got them, that they've been taken in, and whether, depending on what the questions are, everyone has a different question. If it's something that we can easily submit an answer back to, if you say, hey, do you have this, and we send it back, we can do that. If it's a larger project, it may be as part of the process going out, when decisions are made, questions may be included, you know, some of the information. If we know that everyone wants to know X, Y, and Z, we'll try to include that. So I don't want to
Are there action taken by the commissioners before this could go out to bid?
They would have to authorize it to go out to bid.
So there would be a public hearing on that.
No public hearing.
There's no public hearing when the freeholders make a resolution?
It'll be on the agenda of the meeting and then in public hearing.
A resolution authorized to go out to bid.
Resolutions don't have public hearings, but it would be on an agenda, and there's public comment during that meeting when it's
Understood.
on.
Okay,
So
thank
it's
you.
not like an ordinance.